Here we are on essay number 18 in American Miscellany. We're starting here with an engraving of the Mosque of Omar in Jerusalem. It's on Mount Morish, where the Temple of Solomon stood. So, American Miscellany was published in 1865, and this is essay number 18. We just finished an essay on Niagara Falls, a view of Niagara, and we're moving on to essay 18, Travels in the Holy Land, number 2, by Harriet Martineau. My room opened upon a little terrace, the flat roof of a lower apartment in our inn at Jerusalem, and from this little terrace I was never tired of gazing. A considerable portion of the city was spread out below me, not with its streets laid open to view as would be in one of our cities, but presenting a collection of flat roofs with small white cupolas rising from them, and the minarets of the mosques springing, tall and light as the poplar from the long grass of the meadow. The narrow winding lanes, which are the streets of eastern cities, are scarcely traceable from a height, but there was one visible from our terrace, with its rough pavements of large stones, the high house walls on each side, and the arch thrown over it, which is so familiar to all who have seen pictures of Jerusalem. This street is called the Via Doloroso, the mournful way, from its being supposed to be the way by which Jesus went from the judgment hall to Calvary, bearing his cross. Many times in a day my eye followed the windings of this street, in which I rarely saw anyone walking, and when it was lost among the buildings near the walls, I looked over to the hill which bounded our prospect, and the hill was the Mount of Olives. It was then the time of full moon, and evening after evening I used to lean on the parapet of the terrace, watching for the coming up of the large yellow moon from behind the ridge of Olivet. By day the slopes of the mount were green with the springing wheat, and dappled with the shade of the olive clumps. By night those clumps and lines of trees were dark amid the lights and shadows cast by the moon, and they guided the eye, in the absence of daylight, to the most interesting points: the descent to the brook Kedron, the road to Bethany, and the place whence Jesus is believed to have looked over upon the noble city when he pronounced its doom. Such was our view from our terrace. One of our first walks was along the Via Doloroso. There is a strange charm in the streets of Jerusalem, from the picturesque character of the walls and archways. The old walls of yellow stone are so beautifully tufted with weeds that one longs to paint every angle and projection with their mellow coloring and dangling and trailing weeds. And the shadowy archways where the vaulted roofs intersect each other till they are lost in the dazzle of the sunshine beyond are a perpetual treat to the eye. The pavement is the worst I have walked on, large slippery stones slanting all manner of ways. Passing such weedy walls and dark archways as I have mentioned, we turned it into Via Dolorosa, and followed it as far as the governor's house, which stands where Fort Antonia stood when Pilate there tried him, in whom he found, as he declared, no guilt. Here we obtained permission to mount to the roof. Why did we wish it? For reasons of such force as I despair of making understood by any but those to whom the name of the temple has been sacred from their earliest years. None but Mohammedans may enter the enclosure now, no Jew nor Christian. The Jew and Christian who repel each other in the Christian lands are under the same ban here. They are alike excluded from the place where Solomon built and Christ sanctified the temple of Jehovah, and they are alike mocked and insulted if they draw near the gates. Of course, we were not satisfied with seeing all that we could see of this without seeing all that we could see of this place, now occupied by the Mosque of Omar, the most sacred spot to the Mohammedans after Mecca. We could sit under the Golden Gate outside the walls. We could measure with the eye from the bed of the brook Kedron the height of the walls which crowned Moriah. And from amidst which once arose the temple courts, we could sit where Jesus sat on the slope of Olivet, and look over to the height whence the glorious temple once commanded the valley of Jehoshaphat, which lay between us and it. But this was not enough if we could see more. Goodness, what a sentence. We had gone to the threshold of one of the gates, as far as the faithful permit the infidel to go, and even there we had insulting warning not to venture further, and were mocked by little boys. From this threshold we had looked in, and from the top of the city wall we had looked down upon the enclosure, and seen the external beauty of the buildings, and the pride and prosperity of the Mohammedan usurpers. But we could see yet more from the roof of our governor's house, and there we went accordingly. The enclosure was spread out like a map below us, and very beautiful was the mosque, built of variegated marbles, and its vast dome, and its noble marble platform, with its flights of steps and light arcades, and the green lawn which sloped away all round, and the row of cypress trees under which a company of worshippers were at their prayers. But how could we, coming from a Christian land, attend much to present things, when the sacred past seemed spread before our eyes? I was looking almost all the while to see where the sheep's gate was, through which the lambs for sacrifice were brought, and the water gate, through which the priest went down to the spring of Siloam for water for the ritual purification. Let's take a look at this next engraving. It's titled The Mount of Olivet. It's kind of a dark one. That odd circle is kind of printed on too. That's not, there's a lot of damage to this book, but that's not damage to the book. That's just, that's the way it's printed. So I don't know if that's on purpose, but it's titled The Mount of Olives. Another beautiful engraving. All right, while we're here, this is a street in Jerusalem. So here we go. A street in Jerusalem. It is Marine Arsenal in Constantinople. That may be our next topic. Okay, so where were we? I was looking almost all the while to see where the sheep's gate was, through which the lambs for sacrifice were brought, and the water gate, through which the priest went down to the spring of Siloam for water for the ritual purification. I saw where the temple itself must have stood, and planned how far the outer courts extended, the court of the Gentiles, the court of the women, the treasury, where the chest stood on the right of the entrance, and the right hand might give without the left hand knowing, and the place where the scribes sat to teach, and where Christ so taught in their jealous presence as to make converts of those who were sent to apprehend him. I saw whereabouts the altar must have stood, and where arose night and morning for long centuries the smoke of sacrifices. I saw where the golden vine must have hung in clusters on the front of the holy place, and where, again, the innermost chamber must have been, the Holy of Holies, the dwelling place of Jehovah, where none but the high priest might enter, and he only once a year. These places have been familiar to my mind's eye from my youth up, almost as familiar as my own house. And now I looked at the very ground they had occupied and the very scenery they had commanded, with an emotion that the ignorant or careless reader of the New Testament could hardly conceive of. And the review of time was hardly less interesting than that of place. Here my thoughts were led back to the early days when David and Solomon chose the ground and leveled the summit of Mount Moriah and began the temple of Jehovah. I could see the lavishing of Solomon's wealth upon the edifice and the fall of its pomp under invaders who worshipped the sun, and the rebuilding in the days of Nehemiah, when the citizens worked at the walls with arms in their girdles and in the full glory and security, as most of the Jews thought, of their temple, while they paid tribute to the Romans. Oh, the proud Mohammedans before my eyes were very like the proud Jews who mocked at the idea that their temple should be thrown down. I saw now the area where they stood in their pride, and where, before a generation had passed away, no stone was left upon another, and the plow was brought to tear up the last remains of the foundations. Having witnessed this heart-breaking sight, the Jews were banished from the city, and were not even permitted to see their Zion from afar off. In the age of Constantine, they were allowed to approach so as to see the city from the surrounding hills, a mournful liberty, like that of permitting an exile to see his native shores from the sea, but never to land. At length the Jews were allowed to purchase of the Roman soldiers leave to enter Jerusalem once a year, on the day when the city fell before Titus. And what to do? How did they spend that one day of the year? I will tell, for I saw it. The mournful custom abides to this day. I have said how proud and prosperous looking the Mosque of Omar, with its marble buildings, its green leaves, and gaily dressed people, some at prayer under the cypresses, some conversing under the arcades, female devotees in white sitting on the grass, and merry children running up the slopes. All these ready and eager to stone to death on the instant any Christians or Jew who should dare set foot within the walls. It's intense. This is what we saw within. Next, we went round the outside till we came by a narrow, crooked passage to a desolate spot, occupied by desolate people. Under a high, massive, and very ancient wall was a dusty, narrow space, enclosed on the other side by the backs of modern dwellings, if I remember right. This ancient wall, where the weeds are springing from the crevices of the stones, is the only part remaining of the old temple wall, and here the Jews come every Friday to their place of wailing, as it is called, to mourn over the fall of their temple and pray for its restoration. What a contrast did these humble people present to the proud Mohammedans within. The women were seated in the dust, some wailing aloud, some repeating prayers with moving lips, and others reading them from books on their knees. A few children were at play on the ground, and some aged men sat silent, heads dropped on their breasts. Several younger men were leaning against the wall, pressing their foreheads against the stones and resting their books on their clasped hands in the crevices. With some this wailing is no form, for I saw tears on their cheeks. I longed to know if any had hope in their hearts, that they or their children of any generation should pass that wall and should help to swell the cry, "Lift up your heads, O ye gates, that the King of glory might come in." If they had any such hope, it may give some sweetness to this rite of humiliation. We had no such hope for them, and it was with unspeakable sadness that I, for one, turned away from the thought of the pride and tyranny within those walls, and the desolation without, carrying with me a deep-felt lesson on the strength of human faith and the weakness of the tie of brotherhood. Alas, all seem weak alike. Look at the three great places of prayer in the holy city. Here are the Mohammedans, eager to kill any Jew or Christian who may enter the Mosque of Omar. There are the Christians ready to kill any Mohammedan or Jew who may enter the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And here are Jews pleading against their enemies. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, thou art to be destroyed. Happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. Such are the things done and said in the name of religion. In connection with what has been already related by Miss Martineau concerning the Mosque of Omar, we here introduce a more particular description with an engraving drawn from a sketch made on the spot by F. Catherwood Esquire, who spent several years in the Holy Land for the purpose of obtaining views of all the various places that have become hallowed to the Christian world. This splendid building occupies the site of the ancient temple erected by Solomon on Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared unto David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the thrashing floor of Oman, or Araunah, the Jebusite. Araunah, the Jebusite. It's 1 Kings with 2 Chronicles. Don't know what this means. This is 1 Kings, comma, VI, period, comma, with 2 Chronicles, comma, III. I guess it's 3:1. It was erected by the Caliph Omar, and by the Muslims is reputed to be next in sanctity to the temple at Mecca. When Jerusalem was taken by the Crusaders, it was converted into a Christian church, and when they finally abandoned the city, the victorious Sultan Saladin caused the whole building to be washed with rose water by way of purification before he would enter it. The mosque, which is the finest piece of Saracenic architecture in existence, is a regular octagon, each side being 70 feet in width. It is entered by 4 spacious doors facing the cardinal points, the Bab el-Garb on the west, the Bab Nebe Daoud, or Gate of David, on the east, Bab el-Qibla, or the Gate of Prayer, on the south, and Bab el-Jinnah, or the Gate of Heaven, on the north. Each of these entrances has a porch of timberwork of considerable height, excepting Bab el-Qibla, which has a fine portico supported by 8 Corinthian pillars of marble. The lower part of the walls is faced with marble, evidently very ancient. It is white with a slight tinge of blue, and pieces wholly blue are occasionally introduced with good effect. Each face is paneled, the sides of the panels forming plain pilasters at the angles. The upper part is faced with small glazed tiles, about 8 inches square, of various colors, blue being the prevailing, with passages from the Koran on them, forming a singular and beautiful mosaic. The 4 plain sides have each 7 well-proportioned windows of stained glass. The 4 sides of entrance have only 6. The roof gently rises towards the perpendicular part under the dome, which is also covered with colored tiles arranged in various elegant devices. The dome is double. It was built by Suleiman I of a spherical form, is covered in lead, and crowned by a gilt crescent. The whole is 90 feet in height and has a light and beautiful effect. The fanciful disposition of the soft colors above, contrasting with the blue and white marble below, is extremely pleasing. The interior is paved with gray marble, and the walls, which are quite plain, are covered with the same material of a fine white color. 24 pillars of marble of a brownish color form a concentric nave. The 8 opposite the angles are square, without ornament, the other 16, being 2 to each face of the octagon, are round, well proportioned, and about 20 feet in height, with capitals of a composite style, gilt. Above is a plain plinth and 24 small arches supporting the roof, which is wrought in compartments and gilt in exquisite taste. A second circle of 16 pillars, 4 square and 12 round, based on an elevation in the floor, to which there is an ascent of 4 steps, and having capitals, a plinth, and arches, as before, supports the dome, the interior of which is finely painted and gilt in arabesque. From the center are suspended several antique vessels of gold and silver, offerings of some pious Mohammedans. Immediately beneath the dome, surrounded by a high iron railing, gilt, with only one gate of entrance, is an immense mass of limestone of an irregular form, probably part of the rock on which the mosque stands. It is named El Hajira El Sahara Allah, the locked-up stone of God, and is held in the highest veneration. The tradition respecting it is that it fell from heaven when the spirit of prophecy commenced, that all the ancients to whom it was given prophesied from it, and that on this rock sat the angel of death, who, upon David's inconsiderate numbering of the people, slaughtered until God commanded him to put up his sword again into the sheath thereof. That's 1 Chronicles 21:7. Oh my goodness. All right. At the time the prophets fled from Jerusalem, the stone wished to accompany them, but was prevented by the angel Gabriel, who forcibly held it. The marks of his fingers still remain, until the arrival of Mohammed, who, by his prayers, fixed it forever to the spot. Mohammed, in the 12th year of his mission, made his celebrated night journey from Mecca to Jerusalem on the beast El-Borak, accompanied by the angel Gabriel, as described in the 17th chapter of the Quran, and having paid his devotions, ascended from the stone to heaven. The rock, sensible of the happiness, became soft, and the print of the prophet's foot remains to this day, an object of great veneration to all true believers. Some years back, a portion of the rock was stolen by Christians, but no sooner had they got it out of the mosque than it became invisible to them, and was afterwards discovered by the Mussulmans. The rock is enclosed by a low wooden railing and covered by a canopy of green and red satin. Immediately beneath it is a natural chamber called the ennobled cavern of God, an irregular square chamber 18 feet each way and 8 in the highest part, above which is a hole through the rock, called the Hole of Mohammed. 5 small cavities around are inscribed as the places of Solomon, David, Abraham, Gabriel, and St. John. It also contains the Well of Souls, or entrance to the infernal regions. This mosque further contains the praying place and footstep of our Lord Idris, the praying place sword 14 feet long, and standard of Ali, nephew of Muhammad, the scales for the weighing the souls of men, the shield of Muhammad, the birds of Solomon, the pomegranates of David, and the saddle of El-Borak. On a wooden desk, an original copy of the Quran, the leaves of which are 4 feet in length. In the outer circle there is a well at which believers wash and drink, and near the western entrance is a slab of green marble forming part of the floor, which has the marks of having been pierced by 18 nails of silver. 3 of these and a portion of the 4th only remain, the others having at different times disappeared in order to mark the completion of certain great epochs. The remainder are to follow, and when the last takes its departure, the fullness of time will be complete and the world end. Wonder what the timeline is on that. I mean, it's been 160 years. Does anybody know how many nails are left after 160 years? Still the same? Have we lost one? Maybe we just lost a portion of the 4th. Okay, and the world will end. Okay. It is also said that the nails were pulled out by the devil in his attempts to enter paradise by this door. Oh, okay, so the nails are long gone, I guess. Okay, so the nails have been gone for a full century. Okay, this mosque belongs especially to the principal and most respected Muslim sect, that of the Hanifites, so called from Hanifa, its founder, and has been kept sacred from the approach of Christians until very recently. Here and in the mosque at Mecca, the Muslim believes his prayers to be more acceptable to God than anywhere else. It is believed by the Muslims that all the prophets since the time of Adam have come here to pray and prophesy, and that even now they come in invisible troops, accompanied by angels, to pray on the Sahara. The usual guard of this holy stone is 70,000 angels, who are relieved every day. 180 lamps are lighted at night in this mosque. Populous instruction. To instruct mankind in things most excellent, and to honor and applaud those learned men who perform this service with industry and care, is a duty, the performance of which must procure the love of all good men. Oh, teachers are good. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. I think this author, this publisher, just wants to fill every little space, so they just add these random blurbs.